Ooh, girl. This poem right here. Ooh, girl. Okay. All right, I'm just organizing some stuff right here before I get started. So, dame un segundo, por favor. Dame un segundo. Alrighty, okay. Bueno, welcome to the Sincerely Verolina channel. Hey, I am Verolina. The S stands for several things, but you may call me Sovereign. S is fine too, actually. You are now listening to the Things I Never Said poetry series. On this channel, I discuss personal development, relationship dynamics, and in this particular series, my testimony as a foster child turned emancipated minor. If any of those topics interest you or relate to you, then feel free to take a virtual seat in the comment section and engage with the video. So during this podcast, I'm going to discuss a poem that I wrote titled Hoop Lessons. Yes, we are balling in this episode. Okay. Now, this poem is in my collection titled Things I Never Said. If you would like to read along with me or to add the collection to your bookshelf, then click the link in the description below. Bueno, vamos a comenzar. Because this poem right here, this one right here. Okay, I'm pulling up this poem. This poem that I'm reading today is titled Hoop Lessons. And this poem is on page 14, 14. So I'm going to give you some moments to turn to page 14. I'm just kidding. I'm going to give you a moment to turn to page 14 in your book. So go ahead. Yes, take out the Bible, and go ahead and pull that up. If you're on Kindle, this poem, Hoop Lessons, comes right after the poem Wow Child. I don't know if it's on page 14 or 15. I'm sorry, but yeah, it should be easier for you to find it actually on a digital device. All right, so I hope that gave you enough time. Oh, wait, no, I gotta do the theme music. Do, 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 do. Okay, yes. I'll actually come up with like a little jingle, maybe. Don't quote me on that. Bueno, so I hope that gave you enough time to turn to the poem in your book. I'm going to go ahead and get started with the reading since this one is just a little bit longer than the last two that we have done or that I have read and you have listened to. So if you are tuning in from the last video, hey girl, hey, how you doing? Oh my God, how you doing? Wow, good to see you over here. Welcome to this video. Thank you for tuning in. Alrighty. Okay, now seriously, I really hope that you're on this page because I've given you all some time. So yes, I hope everybody's ready. This poem is called Hoop Lessons. Foster brother, the first time I attempt to play basketball with you, I barely make it onto the court. You push me away and say that I am too small to play ball and that my arms don't offer me enough support, so I wait a while. The next time I try, you say the chance of me getting hurt isn't worth the fit that Ma would have if she found out. So, you point to the bench and say to warm it up, which I don't hesitate to do. Sitting on the sidelines and taking in the skyline is good enough for me. It's better than sitting on the couch inside and taking in the television. So I settle into the nearest seat and bask in the evening glow. I focus on the rhythm of nature's creatures humming in sync, the birds, the bees, and the boys barbecuing next door. The harmony keeps me distracted for a while, but just when I grow tired of watching you be a ball hog, something in your spirit shifts. You ask me if my arms have gotten strong enough and usher for me to take a place on the asphalt. Before I know it, I am floating in front of the basketball rim, in your arms, with the ball in my hands. You say to take as many shots as I want. So I do this over and over again. When you put me down, I am still amazed at how different the skyline appears when you're closer to the ground. In this moment, I decide that I'm ready to be taller and stronger. I announce that I can't wait to grow old and do all that you're capable of doing. That is when you take the ball from me in exchange for wise words. You say, be careful not to get so caught up in what will happen next that you can't appreciate what is happening now. Hoop lessons. Hey. Okay, thank you for thank you for listening to my reading of the poem Hoop Lessons. All right, let's all take a collective deep breath. Bueno. Okay, so with Hoop Lessons, I don't think that this is super heavy, but I do think that it is a deep poem, and for that reason, I really do like it. I will say that this poem was intentionally written in this format. I don't know if you have paid attention and noticed, but the poems change in terms of the format as you read the collection. There are some poems that are written like letters, and that is why the very first line in the poem is addressing someone. Like there are poems that start off like foster mother or father or sister, and it's all poetry, but I chose to write some of the poems in a letter format or like a thoughts in a notebook format or the standard official formal poetry format or poem format. And that was intentional. I wanted some poems to sort of read like a conversation. After all, the poetry collection is called Things I Never Said for a reason. So the poems where I address someone directly, that's me saying the things that I never got to say, but written from the perspective of the child in that moment. Now, I did, of course, write things maturely instead of like as a child would say it, because, well, who wants to read that, right? Like, I don't think I would have much tolerance for that. But yes, I just wanted to preface by saying that because that was something I was pretty intentional about. And if you're a writer, you might like notice and appreciate things like that. So yeah. But with what I will say this before I get into the questions that I have, is that Hoop Lessons is one of the poems that I really enjoy from the first part of this poetry collection. And that is because what I did was similarly to what I did with Play de Pensamientos, which was take a very small moment, like such a short and small memory, and connect it to something deeper. And like I said in the last couple of podcast episodes, there are lessons in life everywhere. You just have to pay attention, think deeply and critically about things, and then you may be able to see where the lesson is. I'll be very transparent. I don't remember my foster brother ever telling me the quote at the very bottom of this poem, where I say, be careful not to get so caught up in what will happen next that you can't appreciate what is happening now. But the reason that I decided to write that is because that is the lesson that I got from that experience. Now, I, of course, do remember being anxious to play basketball on the court with all the other kids because, like I said in the previous podcast episode for the poem Wow Child, I was just anxious to be with all the other kids. I was the baby of the family. I was put into foster care around the time I turned 5 months old or young. And so I was a small child compared to all the other, 7 children in the house. And I just wanted to be with them. I just wanted to feel like I was capable too. I didn't like being left out and stuck, at home or inside the house with my foster mother. No offense. But I just didn't like that because I felt like I'm a kid and I should be with all the other kids and they are having all this fun and I'm too small. Like, so I can't do anything. Like my foster mother would be like yelling out of the window, like, no, like take her off the court now. Like she would be so upset if they played rough around me. And so they would always be like, get her out the way, like tell her to go sit down, tell her to move. And so that is why in the poem Hoop Lessons, I reference my foster brother telling me to go warm up the bench. I don't remember if he ever used those words. It's poetry after all, right? So I'm telling you the story, I'm telling you the incident and the moment, which is, of course, very much real, but I'm also using poetic devices in order to tell the story. And that is how you turn a short story or a regular statement into poetry. For example, when I say in the poem that I say, so you point to the bench and you say to warm it up, which I don't hesitate to do. Sitting on the sidelines and taking in the skyline is good enough for me. It's better than sitting on the couch inside and taking in the television. So I settle into the nearest seat and bask in the evening glow. I focus on the rhythm of nature's creatures, humming in sync, the birds, the bees, and the boys barbecuing next door. The harmony keeps me distracted for a while, but just when I grow tired of watching you be a ball hog, something in your spirit shifts. You ask me if my arms have gotten strong enough and usher for me to take a place on the asphalt. I'm not saying that my foster brother actually asked me, are your arms strong enough? No, it's poetry. It's not like literal. I'm not saying he literally asked me if my arms are strong enough. It was more like you ready? Like you done, because I sat there and I waited and I watched him play ball. And I think he saw that I was, a dedicated little child. Like I really wanted to play. And so after sitting there and just enjoying being outside and being with all the other people who were outside usually, he gave me that opportunity he held me up to the rim and he let me shoot the ball as many times as I wanted. And I was so happy as a kid because in that moment, I think I got to feel like an adult, or I got to feel more capable. And when I looked at the older kids around me, what I saw was that they were more capable, that they could do more for themselves. And I have pretty much had the desire to do for myself and to feel capable pretty much throughout my entire upbringing. So yes, with this poem, I just wanted to capture that memory because it was one of the more pleasant memories that I had with the foster children in the home, or with the children in the home. And it is also just a memory that I was able to connect to something larger. Now, going into the questions that I wrote down, question number 1 is, what moment or thing inspired the poem? I just answered that one. That is the incident when my foster brother held me up to the rim and let me dunk the ball as many times as I wanted to. And it was just super legendary for me as a little girl because I was so far from being able to do that myself while I was living in that foster home, So it was just like a cute memory. And it was one of the few memories that I have one of the few pleasant memories that I have with the people that I grew up with in that home. Question number 2 is, what message did you want to convey with the poem? And that is actually, the answer to that question is actually at the very bottom. It's the quote that says, be careful not to get so caught up in what will happen next that you can't appreciate what is happening now. That is the message. If you take away nothing else, take away that. Appreciate what is happening in your life now, because what is happening in your life now is preparing you for what is happening in your life in the future. You just haven't arrived to that place yet. And it doesn't mean literally. I'm not saying that if someone is beating you over the head with a frying pan, that you need to appreciate that. You don't need to appreciate that. You need to save yourself. And if that means you have to fight back, you fight back. If that means you got to do some things you'd rather not admit that you did, okay, do those things and don't admit that you did it, okay? But I'm not at all saying you take abuse and you just say, oh, let me appreciate it because, life will be better. No. Don't get it twisted. I'm not at all saying that. I'm saying in a general sense, the phase that you're in your life right now is literally priming you and prepping you for what you are likely to encounter later on in your life. And it also may be a part of your testimony that's meant to be shared with other people so you can inspire them. I think even just on a simpler note, appreciate what is happening now, meaning appreciate the time that you can't do for yourself, but other people are doing for you. Because, of course, as you grow into a young adult, that changes. Those of us who are independents, those of us in our early 20s, shout out Gen Z, we know how, when you're on your own and you're independent, you don't have the luxury of relying on other people to do for you. More often than not, you got to do everything for yourself. And I've been an independent for a while. I became an emancipated minor when I was 16. But even before then, I had so much responsibility. I was doing so much for the other kids that I grew up with, including my biological siblings. And I don't know that they even appreciated anything that I did for them. But maybe now that they are not little kids anymore, maybe when they look back on their lives, they realize that like I did provide so much for them. I wasn't out paying bills. I was a child. I couldn't, but I helped them with their homework. I created like homework assignments for them when I saw that they were struggling in a subject. I went above and beyond, and I hope that even if they never say it to me, I hope that my younger siblings appreciated that, just as I express in this poem how much I appreciated my foster brother for that very, very small gesture. But I remember it. I remember it because it was such a pleasant change, like from how isolated I was from the other kids because I was smaller than them. And then we all were different ages and we didn't really get along that well. You know, some of us were foster kids, but some of us were not. And they knew that even when I didn't know that I was a foster kid. And so I think sometimes they kept their distance and stuff because, well, they knew that we weren't really their family. Or maybe they just like didn't see us as their family, you know? But yes, the message that I wanted to convey with this poem is to just appreciate what life is doing for you right now and appreciate where you are in your life right now. Appreciate what you can. Even if you cannot appreciate very much, just appreciate what you can. All the little things. Any little thing that's going right, any little thing that fills your heart and your mind with joy, just try to appreciate it. And when you look back on your life, as you go through more things that you have to overcome or that you just triumph through, you will see how those small, pleasant, positive gestures from other people helped you during the times of darkness and despair. So that's really what I wanted to share with that poem. That was the reason I wrote that memory down and decided to convert it into a poem. And I know there's not much use of poetic devices in this letter. However, I would still say that you can find the poetry. You just gotta know, you gotta know. Anywho, so question number 3 says, how did writing this poem affect or impact your healing journey? Honestly, I think in the writing process for this poem, what I learned and what I recalled was how I didn't really have many friends in my foster home. Similarly to when I was reunited with my birth parents and with my biological siblings, I didn't have any friends at that home either. It was just a little bit better when I lived in my foster home. And so when I went down the memory lane and started writing and brainstorming for this poem, I thought about how my foster mother used to tell me sometimes, like, okay, so I don't want to like get too ahead of myself. Like there are poems where I would talk about this later, but my foster mother used to abuse us sometimes. And I remember like there was this time where my foster mother told me like that she didn't want to hit me. Like she said something to me like, you need to stay away from those kids. Like I think she was referring to her own grandchildren or her own and her neighbor's children possibly, because there was something that happened and my sister and I were blamed and abused physically for something that we didn't do, and that happened a lot. And my foster mother, she used to beat us all together. Like she used to line us up and like hit us one by one and stuff like that and make the rest of us watch it. Like some true slavery plantation type of stuff, like really, that's how like the impact of slavery is real in the United States, because the things that I could say, Dios mío, pero yeah. So she used to abuse us like that as a form of punishment, even when only one child did something wrong. All of us had to suffer from it. And I remember one time when she told me to stay away from the other kids because she doesn't want to hit me, but she has to, make an example out of all of us and stuff. And I'm not saying those are the exact words that she used. I do remember her telling me to stay away from them though, because she doesn't want to hit me, but she has to. And I remember like that caused me to feel like I had nobody in the home, because when she was away at work, I was left with her daughter who would abuse us, and I was left with her kids. And her grandchildren, and then my sister. And my biological sister did not, we did not get along. I'm not really sure why she resented me. I don't know if she just remembered more things than I did and took it out on me. That is my guess, but I don't actually know why she treated me the way that she did. But yes, I didn't really have anybody in the home. Like my foster mother was like my best friend as a little girl. When my when my neighbors' kids were not around, like my foster mother was the only person I felt super close with. So when she was in her garden, I was in her garden. When she was baking in the kitchen, I was there right by her side. She was probably the only person I felt super close to, because from the age of like 4 months, almost 5 months, this woman took care of me. And so I was like her little mini me. I would follow her around and stuff like that. And it was partly because of my attachment to her, but it was also due to me feeling like if I stayed with the other kids, then I was going to be beaten more, because of course they were rambunctious and they were, just being reckless kids. So in terms of or as that relates to my healing journey, when I started writing and recalling this, I remembered like how some of the sorrow that I felt as a kid in my biological parents' custody actually stemmed from going through that exact same scenario with my foster family, that same situation of being surrounded by so many people and so many kids all the time, yet feeling so alone. Because, like I said, if I stayed with the kids, I was at risk of being like severely beaten and punished. And then if I stayed with my foster mother, like that wasn't even always an option, but also that didn't help me in terms of my social skills and like knowing how to be around different people with different personalities. So it's like you can't win. I couldn't win, man. But yes, I would say it impacted my healing journey for the better, because, like I said, with some of the other recent podcast episodes, I was able to recall something positive. And so every once in a while, when I look at my poetry collection for positive or inspirational food for thought, I can look at this poem, I can read this poem, and I can smile to myself and remember my foster brother holding me up and helping me dunk the ball and, just being nice to me. And he was older than some of the other kids. This foster brother in particular was older than us. And so he also wasn't around that much, just like his sister, who was a teenager. Like, I think they were in high school when I was like 5 and 6. And so he wasn't around that much, but that I do remember that one moment, and I do appreciate him very much just for that one moment. I don't even really remember him. I remember his name and that's it. I don't remember his face that much, just because like he was always gone, you know? But I do appreciate that. So yeah, thanks to the universe. Thank you, God, for making that happen, I guess. All right, so question number 4 is, what did I learn about myself or in general during the writing process? I think what I would say about the poem Hoop Lessons is that I would say honestly, what I learned something more like in a general sense than about myself with this poem, because this poem is not actually focused that much on me. Um, I took a deep breath when I read that question, because I thought about something right away, but I'm not sure if I want to say that now or later. But what I will say that I learned in general during the writing process for Hoop Lessons is how important it is that we have people in our homes that make us feel safe and secure. That's what I learned. I learned in general that when it comes to the social interactions you have as a child, they are literally preparing you for the way in which you interact with other people. And I fortunately had a lot of empathy for kids and for just people in general. And so when I went to school and I interacted with people in the church or in the community, I was intentional. I tried to make people feel happy and positive and good like I felt from being around my foster mother and just, being the baby of the family. Like for a short while, I think that that can be fun, especially when, they just think everything that you do is adorable because you are so small and so precious. I learned from writing this poem and seeing how something so small, like somebody just holding me up to a freaking rim, is like, it's that valuable for somebody like me, because I have far more moments that were worse than that, or that were like super severe and traumatic. And so to counter the weight of all of that, I only have these small moments, like of kids, playing dolls with me, or like my foster brother holding me up to the freaking rim to shoot a basketball into the hoop. It's something so small, but I realize like I have to be grateful for even those small things, because I could have not had anything like that. There are children who go their entire upbringing in tunnels and cages and being trafficked all across this world, as of course these news articles keep revealing to us before they get swiftly swept under the rug, of course, right? But yeah, like there are so many people who don't even get to have a normal childhood. I didn't really get to have a normal childhood. I just got a glimpse of it for a couple of years. And I appreciate it so much. I appreciate all the little things, like the dolls. I appreciate everything that went right, you know? I am grateful for it all. And in terms of what I learned about myself, I would say I learned that I have gratitude for the smallest things. I learned that when it comes to the positive experiences that people gave me, I learned that I value those more than I value things. Because when I sat down and I wrote this, I smiled to myself. I cried, but I smiled to myself at how much I really appreciated those small moments. This is just one, but those really small moments, like playing with the girls across the street, playing in the dirt. This one time I got yelled at for playing in the dirt because we couldn't play with the sand. Like we were told we couldn't go to the beach, so we just played with the dirt instead. And I got yelled at for it. But you know what? I got yelled at and scolded with the other kids. And that made it much better for me. And I appreciate those moments, because when I went on to live with my biological family members, I didn't have anybody at all. And I had brothers, I had sisters, both older and younger, but I didn't have anybody to like make those kinds of memories with. Like I don't remember sitting down and like, or excuse me, I don't remember playing with my brothers on the basketball court. I remember them playing. I remember them playing with their friends, and I remember watching them for a little while, but there was no togetherness. There was no like, oh, let's all sit down and play, or do a puzzle together. Like there was none of that. It was just very different, you know? And when we did have moments where we were all together, or some of us were together, most of the time they were not pleasant. So in writing this, I realized that like there were some positive experiences in my foster home that I can focus on, or that I can cherish and appreciate, as a way to try to feel better about the things in my foster home and in the rest of my upbringing that I went through. Because if I don't find something positive to focus on, I will just sink in my sorrows, and that's not an option for me, and not at all. So yes, I will say, like in short, Hoop Lessons was a kind of a fun poem to write. It was a little bit of a challenge to turn such a short moment into like such a long poem. But I think the words began to flow the more I went back to that moment. I loved the backyard that we had, even though it was probably raggedy. Like it was probably raggedy, but as a kid, like everything can seem like more magical for you if you like the environment that you are in. And I only said it was probably raggedy because, of course, I lived in a hurricane state, like a tropical state. So we were impacted by Hurricane Katrina. We were impacted by, or the area is just impacted by hurricanes all the time. And so that tends to destroy like the backyards and stuff like that, and the land sometimes. But yeah, it was just a little bit raggedy, like the basketball court was, but the garden and stuff was nice. But yes, I think that that's all that I have to say for this poem. So I will say thank you so much for listening. I will say that I hope that you found something inspirational in the poem and in this podcast. And I hope that you feel the courage to share any testimony or experiences that you had in case you may inform or inspire other people. And I encourage you to check out other people's comments or testimonies as well in the comment section, because you never know what may inspire you. But on that note, I would say thank you so much for listening. Tata mi amores, take care.
Gonna give you this mic back. But what I'm gonna say to the ladies that been told that you cannot have, you tell the devil you's a liar.